Is there any advice would you give somebody who just has a panic attack in the first week?
Yeah, panic attack in the first week. Oh my gosh.
No, I don't know anybody here, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what do you do when you have a panic attack in the first week? I think the first thing to do is...
I'll tell you a little incident. So I got in a flight in India and the plane took off and something happened in my stomach. It was not a good feeling. It's just a little bit bad feeling. But then I was in flight and I was looking out and I forgot about it. So for a week, I stayed with somebody, some friend, right? And then I found my apartment and I dropped my bags in my room and I was alone. And suddenly a thought came in my head, like, what if I die here? Just out of nowhere, and I started feeling terrible. I don't know whether it was a panic attack or I don't have the explanation, but I never felt that bad before. I feel like, sink. I just sink inside and I was shaking a little bit and I'm like, nobody cares about me. What? And just such a terrible feeling. I can't even explain it. What was I feeling? But I was like, let me call my brother in India and ask him to book my ticket back. That's it. I can't. Mm-hmm. But it was a kind of a late, afternoon, and people in India would be sleeping. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get out. That's it. I'm just gonna get out of the house because if I stay here, I will start crying or I don't know what I'll do. So I just left house and I started. As soon as I got out, I felt a little better. So I started walking. I was living in Culver City, so I started walking on Palms. And turned right on Overland. Mm-hmm. And there was an Indian clothing store, traditional Indian clothing store. So I just went inside and I said hi to the lady and I talked to her for 5 minutes and I was like, hi, I'm Indian and I just came here. Mm-hmm. So I talked to her for 5 minutes and, it felt a little bit better. But then we had nothing to talk to each other. So after that, I got out and I started walking again and there was one restaurant. So I was like, okay, let me just go there. Luckily, it was a break time and owners were there. So they talked to me. They offered me chai, like, have a seat, have a conversation with us. Mm-hmm. So we talked and then I said like, I've had this bad feeling and I don't know. I'm just new and I came here 1.5 months before the school was going to start. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if you go to school and you forget about all those things.
Right, you're thrown into all the
chaos.
Busyness of the chaos of the demands of school. You had a lot of time to sit alone.
Yeah, and they were nice enough to tell me like, why don't you come here? If you just, every time you feel that it's just a walking distance, just come here. And I was like, thank you so much. So I went home, 4:00, I just went there. And for a month and a half, I kept going there in the morning, evening, and then I discovered there's a temple, Hindu temple on Venice. And I just walk for almost an hour, go there. And that's where I found some people and I talked to them and things kept getting better and better. That's the first time I experienced something, but, just the journey dealing with loneliness, not having hard to make a friends, and even like dating was hard. So you were like, if I have a girlfriend, then I have somebody here. Yeah. But again, it's a challenging thing. So dealt with all this. You never thought that I should talk to therapists. That thought never came in my mind.
You don't learn unless you make mistakes, and you don't get support unless you get vulnerable. I mean, this story of you going to the woman in the Indian clothing store and then the restaurant, you were vulnerable. I mean, that's kind of gutsy to say, I'm new and I feel terrible. Yeah. I feel alone. Yeah. So many people feel alone. Yeah. So many people don't feel comfortable saying out loud to a stranger or a new friend how alone they feel. There's this worry about I'm going to burden. It's not a burden. Guess what? The average human feels alone at some point in their life. Yeah. And you have a right. Your emotions are valid. Yeah. So the moment you showed your vulnerability was the moment you got support. Yeah. And that's bravo to you, because that took courage. And I think it's tricky. We don't always get support when we're vulnerable. No. We don't. It's hit or miss. Yeah. But what is that?
The second place helped me. First place, not as much.
The first place, not as much. Exactly. So that's why you were consistent. That's why I said if you have to be consistent. Yeah. Show up to a social place and keep showing up there, or show up to a different place, mix it up. Yeah. But there's a famous quote: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." So
true. So I did a lot of right thing. Would you want to add something if somebody feels that situation? that you can do apart from what I did? Is there any advice would you give somebody who just has a panic attack in the first week?
Yeah, panic attack in the first week. Oh my gosh.
No, I don't know anybody here, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what do you do when you have a panic attack in the first week? I think the first thing to do is to acknowledge, hopefully whoever's listening to this, to first acknowledge what you're feeling.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of know yourself, understand yourself.
Yeah.
When you notice yourself having a panic attack, be kind to yourself, because some people will judge themselves.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh my God, I came this far.
Yeah.
I worked this hard.
Yeah.
And like,
I'm
look
here.
at me, I'm
Yeah.
freaking out. What's wrong with me? Can't I
Yeah.
just be grateful?
Yeah.
Or they judge the situation. Like, oh my God, LA is terrible. What is this? It's not what I saw in the movies.
Yeah.
It is, but then, that was a cool thing I saw. That's a famous place in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
That's a famous place in Hollywood. Now I'm home alone again.
Yeah.
This sucks,
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, notice your preferences. Notice what you like and don't like and name that. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, I feel that. And then ask yourself, is there anything I can do right now?
Yeah.
To be kind to myself is number one, and to change the situation. Yeah. So do you see how I'm not giving a direct answer? Like,
yes. Yeah.
I'm go to a dance party,
No, it's different on your personality, right?
Yeah. But I would say, generally speaking, they say this about anxiety, because panic is a form of anxiety.
Yeah.
The general thing that they say in the field of psychology is when you have anxiety, it's a feeling of like, my heart is racing, like I'm freaking out, I'm panicking. A good response is action.
Yes.
So to do an action, right? So if you're feeling anxious, go on a walk, right?
Yeah.
If you're feeling lonely, do some research, right?
Yeah.
So doing an action helps. Hopefully it's a healthy action. Sometimes people do an action and it's a familiar action. It's not always a healthy behavior.
Well, you mean by people maybe try drugs or,
sometimes.
be friends with the wrong people, which is big no-no as an international student, because if you committed any crime, that's pretty much end of your career in US as an international student. They might revoke your visa and they might, send you back to your country, and it ruins your career, one, mistake. So that's a really good point.
I've actually never known anybody to get involved with the wrong people. Wow. In my 4 years of work, not a single student of mine has ever described anything like that.
Yeah.
But of course therapy is confidential, it's not my job to comment on that. I just ask them, is this helping you? Is this truly helping you?
Yeah.
Sometimes people do struggle with addictions though.
Yes.
And not just classical addictions like to alcohol or weed, but addiction to gaming, to phone addiction.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggle with that. And, I think it's even harder as an international student because again, you can't just walk across the street and talk to someone in your language. Or, you can't just like call someone because they're 12 hours away and they're asleep, right? When you're feeling terrible. So I do think that it's important to always come back to being kind to oneself. Even if someone is having an addiction or an addictive behavior, to also not judge them or judge themselves, but rather evaluate the behavior. So that's what I do. I don't say this is an addict. This is someone who has an addiction.
Yes.
Because guess what? You can actually change that.
Yeah.
So people don't have to be defined by that.
Yeah.
But one thing that people sometimes do is they fall back on the familiar thing that's comforting, and it's not always very helpful in the long run. It helps in the moment.
Yes. It comes out becomes bigger problem eventually, right?
It can. And that's when I'm like, great, so let's work on this, right?
Yeah.
And if not me, I can send you to a specialist who can help you with that. The good thing about therapy is the kinds of people who do this work are people who like hearing about problems. We like working with addiction. We like, I don't specialize in addiction, but there's a passion there. The same way someone who became a dancer likes dancing, and a doctor of medicine likes hearing people talk about their symptoms because they know there are solutions.
Definitely.